The research evidence on how people learn is that if I stand here and vote for England, you'll remember 5% of what I've told you. So that's a pretty useless way of teaching. If you read it, you remember 10%. If you've got some sort of audio-visual thing, you're up to 20 or 30%. The time when you get really, really good retention is when you do what you people have been doing this morning, you talk to each other. So we need to get strategies in place where learners are enabled to talk to each other in class, legitimately, not about EastEnders or the latest text message. Okay, now that's the aspiration. What has to happen is that we have to give them something to do that is more interesting than EastEnders or what they've been watching on the TV the previous night. And that is what's going to happen now. Paul is going to show you some teaching resources which can be used to help learners to talk about the mathematics and, in the best case scenario, to teach each other. You know that when you've got a tough topic to teach, you have to swat it up. And at the end of that, you know that topic much better than you did before you taught it. And the same is true for learners. If you can persuade learners to teach each other, their retention will go through the roof. And they will remember that stuff for their BTEC assignments 6 months down the line when somebody in the workplace asks them to explain it to them. So without more ado, over to Paul.
Right. This is why I'm coming in. I think basically my sermon is on the theme of don't reinvent the wheel unless you have to. And here, I think it's a very, very important wheel. It's from the initiative that was undertaken in around about 2005 on improving mathematics generally for 16, 17, 18-year-olds. Okay? And I believe there's some enormously good material in here. When you look at the box and we talk about the, and we see what the approach is supposed to be, it's supposed to be a shift from passive to active learning and a shift from the transmission of information from the teacher to challenging teaching. Okay, so that is the overall philosophy of the box, if you like. Okay, just looking a little bit more detail as to what they say the underlying principles are. Build on knowledge that the learners bring to the lessons. Expose and discuss common misconceptions. We won't go into that, but there's quite a bit of detail about using misconceptions as a way of advancing and moving forward in the box. Developing effective questioning techniques and focus particularly on the use of cooperative small group working and the use of collaborative tasks. And those are the key areas that we're going to be having a quick look at. Now I'm just going to show you a video clip from the box. Okay? I'm going to ask you 3 questions at the end of this. Okay? What do you notice about the style of teaching that you'll see? What do you notice about the type of resources that's being used? And who do you think the video was intended to?
There's a great deal of research about the most effective ways in which people learn mathematics. It seems that we understand maths much better when we have to discuss and explain it to someone else. You will probably find that your teachers or trainers say that they began to understand maths a lot better once they started teaching it. This approach to your learning of maths is about encouraging you to talk about and explain your ideas rather than just looking for the right answer.
Was this one or this one? And the way we figured that out was...
You will be asked to discuss your maths in pairs and small groups, to challenge each other about approaches and to share your ideas. By working in this way, you are more likely to get the right answers when you need them, in the exam.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is one way. And that is
I personally get a lot more out of it when it's group work, more interaction, because you do get more interaction with the teacher as well.
Every time you're explaining something, you're sort of reinforcing it in your own head as well. So every time you sort of give an answer to something, you have to be sure of that yourself. And every time you do it, you become more sure of it.
Sometimes having a friend teaching you can be easier than a teacher. Like sometimes a friend can tell it you in a way that you didn't know.
if you're not so strong on it, the other person can concentrate on it and then they can teach you.
We have tested these approaches to maths teaching around the country, and our experience is that when teachers and trainers use these techniques, learners say that they enjoy their maths, feel more challenged by their work, and that the more active approaches make them want to learn more. Through this, they are becoming better at learning.
There's because of like, basically it's because this is minus now, so like it's basically the other way around.
If we actually make up our rule in our own head, then we understand it clearly, instead of being told, because we're explaining it from us, we totally understand it and try and explain it to the teacher.
So have a go. There's nothing to lose, and judging by the results on our pilot, there is everything to gain.
More than one answer, but just have a couple of minutes comparison, see how you got on. It's not
using the board and stuff, everyone can share everyone's ideas, and I think it's just a good way.
It helps us because I think we learn easier if it's more involved rather than just listening all the time.
There's more emphasis on fun than like sitting down and, you know, learn maths, isn't it?
Definitely. Where you learn it and they put the stuff in your head, it's just forever. You're not gonna forget it in your life.
Cards.
Matching cards.
Matching cards. Yeah. Cards.
And there was some whiteboard things that you could draw on and then
yes.
mark it off, which that's the closest I've ever come to one of those.
Well, now that is very interesting, and I'd be very keen to just share opinions on that. Cards is something I have used. And
I've used quite a lot of those resources.
What about the mini whiteboards?
Well, I've never had one to use.
I've used them with the classes before. I find that they can, in some classes, they can be a real benefit by students sort of marking things down and displaying answers as a group without sort of interacting and not feeling afraid of, because they can't, the only person that can see what they've written is me rather than everyone. Okay, I've written my answer down here. Show your answers, please.
Yes. But what I do want to actually talk about now, or get you people to have a look at, is the cards. And I think that was the one thing that probably stood out in terms of the resources the students were using. Is it just leading in wrong directions, or is it not true? Because there's two ways that cards could be inappropriate here, isn't there? They could be steps in a transposition that are perfectly valid, but just make the thing more complex than it started. Or they might be steps in a transposition that are wrong. They are errors. So I then engage the more able students and what sort of red herrings have you identified? Are they simply unhelpful, or are they incorrect?
Right. There's like 30t. It's a subject number. 30t minus 20v equals 20g. So remove 17t, something like this. And then to get t's, then you can put the t's on this side, put everything else on the other side, and then do the division again. Okay.
Yeah, clear bracket.
What we've done, let's thinking about this. It's going to be easier to get rid of fractions.
So you can represent lots of different sets of data like this in a very, very small space and get a feel for what the data's like.
I didn't even know about that.
We're going to look at some questions that relate to ordering. You've not got cards, you've got a sheet. So if we do that, then we're going to have to give you some scissors to cut the cards, okay? Which is something that you may ask the students to do. It does have some advantages and disadvantages, okay? And we will give you some scissors to cut them, okay? You've got two actual types of ordering question here, or ordering exercise, and they really are, I think, challenging the student more than those initial matching ones were. These are really asking the students to work at a higher level. Certainly, it's a higher level in terms of the yellow forms, the yellow pages, because they do need to be able to transpose a wider range of functions. And it's a really considerably higher level on the pink ones, because there we're asking them to think rather more abstractly about methods, about what order they would take the various steps in more advanced transpositions. What did you think about actually giving the students cards to cut? What about that?
They're actually taking in, they're looking at it, they may be taking it in without really knowing it, so concentrate on it. So it's just becoming familiar with it, working out what they need to do, and giving them that time to reflect on the actual activity.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about from your perspective, what's a big advantage?
Keeps them busy so you don't do nothing.
But it's one less thing for you to do to get
quite a lot as a revision. So I would have taught something, and then next week Here
Yeah.
are the cards. Can you remember?
Okay, yeah. Useful stuff there. Okay, I think we've talked about the likely effectiveness sort of in the groups here, but you might want to sort of talk about that over lunch as to how effective these techniques might be.